Good morning to one and all. This is Dr. P. Lavanya, working as an associate professor in MBA Department of Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. So today our topic relates to the production and cost analysis. So first we'll see what is production and how cost will affect the production. So before going depth into the topic, first we'll see what is production and different concepts of production. So production is a process of converting an inputs into more valuable outputs. So we should identify here, it's a process where inputs, we have to identify that what are the things required to be converted to form as an output. So where we can identify that inputs, maybe we'll call whatever the inputs like raw materials and accessories required in order to transform them into a product. So the process of production where the transformation process will be taken into the account. For example, when you take that raw materials, so raw materials, they should be converted with the help of machineries, and that machineries will convert the raw materials into their product and the output will get as a product. So here the process where inputs they itself will be converted in the form of an output or a product. So this production analysis is more important when you want to analyze the demand, mainly used for the planning and production processes. Why? Because so as we know what is the process and the methods of the production only, then we can plan what we have to do in case of demand analysis. And at the same way, this production concept is more useful in order to determine the what level of production. So how much goods when we want to produce in a particular period of the time, first we should identify that what is the concept of production and these production concept, how it was processing the inputs into the outputs. So far in order to attain the equilibrium point where we want to see that supply should be equal to the demand, as we have seen in the last videos that demand and supply which will determines what point of goods are required to be sold in the market. So in order to attain a marketing equilibrium, we want the supply and demand. So for that side, production is an important aspect. Why? Because supply depends upon the production. Only when the production completes, goods are supplied into the market. So production aspect of supply side of the market. So we should consider that when you want to take consideration of the supply, automatically we must and should consider the factors and related things to the production. So in case of analyzing the marketing equilibrium or any product equilibrium, we should consider both supply and demand. Supply itself having the importance of production and our time of the production will be completed. So for that we have to see the detailed information relating to the production concept. And as we know, when you want to have the production has an economic value. Why? Because it's a process where itself was creating an output where the value has to be satisfies the human wants and needs. Means the economic value, some goods economically related to the money or utilization of the raw materials that was converted in the form of production. So that will satisfy. Why we are producing any goods? In order to satisfy the human beings' wants and their requirement. So in the economics, we know that business which produces the goods are known as the producers. The business people who are manufacturing or production taken place, those people will call it as a producers. And the companies who are taking in case of inputs, companies which are taking inputs available both in the material and immaterial to produce these products while the consumer will want to buy. Means in the business point of view, we know that the person produces the goods are called producers. For that producers, there are the different companies or the vendors will be there who will provide the materials, maybe in the form of raw materials, labor or other accessories required in the production process. And why we require to produce the goods? As we have a demand or the consumer want to buy goods in the market. Means in order to satisfy the consumer needs, we are satisfying or providing the product to the market. So that's why in the economics, this production concept is much more important. So in other words, we can say like the production itself will creates the utilities. Creation of utilities may be of different forms like farm utility, place utility, time utility and service utility. Means production itself will provide form, that is raw material goods was modified into a complete production. Yes, and the place utility where the place will be provided by factory where the all people will come and produce the goods and services. The place is having the importance, means the place utility was provided. Time, what particular time the goods are produced and what particular time we are sending the goods to the market, means we ourselves satisfying the needs of the people at a particular point of time. So we are satisfying the time utility and service utility. We are providing servicing to the market people or the customers who requires the goods and services. So the production itself is creating the four types of utilities, maybe like farm utility, place utility, time utility and service utilities. So inputs don't have to be the raw material. Other inputs can also be immaterial or intangible. Means don't think that all the production process involves in a tangible materials, means which we can see. But there are the services are also there in case of production which are immaterial and intangible, means where we cannot like services, doctors, lawyers and other peoples, or maybe the distribution network where goods were transferred from one place to the another, where we can't tangible the services. So intangible things also comes under these form of inputs. And at the same way, for example, the manufacturing a plant or a technical and industrial know-how is also comes under the inputs. Means technical things, that is maybe with the help of the power, machineries, whatever we utilized. And industrial know-how means technologically advanced machineries by utilization of computers and all other. So these are also comes under the inputs. That's why we says in the process of production, what are the inputs means we doesn't consider only the visible things as an inputs. The all other assessing technology will also come under the input form. That's why we'll say that inputs are both the tangible and also the intangible. So here we'll see how this production process of inputs could be converted in the form of output. So there are the ones when we want to see what are the inputs required in case of production analysis. First we have seen the four things, that is physical capital, labor, raw materials and technology. These are the four essential things which are required in the production process. So before going for these production process, first we'll see what is the definition of this production. So the production is defined by Professor J.K. Hicks, where he says that any activity, whether it is physical or mental, which is directed to satisfy of other people wants through exchange, means here whatever the product or what are the thing we are producing which related to the physical quantity type or maybe the mental quantity type. So which will satisfy to the people through exchange, means the goods which are produced in a physical quantity or the mental or services, whatever they provided, they are exchanged from the producer to the customers, which give the satisfaction to the people. So that is the definition which was given by the J.R. Hicks. So from the above definitions, we can say like there are the some features of production like where the production activity involves both the physical and mental. We can't say that production means only the raw materials, machineries are working. So people's internal activities means people's mind, technology and people are utilized in the process of production as labor is one of the important factor. So that's why physical and mental activity is required to produce the goods and services. And next one is these goods and services. So what purpose we are producing? In order to satisfy the people's want, means individual people's wants to be satisfied. So for example, when you take a farmer produces a production, or maybe he went for giving any vegetables, a farmer go for production of a vegetables on the land. For what purpose? He want to sell or exchange to the other customers rather than for his own utilization. So that's why it is when farmer uses for own himself, produces the goods, or he farm or cultivate the vegetables and use in his own home, it is not called as a production. Only when he sell the goods or exchange the goods in the market or to other customer, then it is called as a production. And must and should thing in the production is that the goods must and should be exchanged to the other for an economic value. Means the goods to be transferred to the one person to the another for some amount. So where we can say, like when we teach a class, a teacher teaches a class for his own children or our own purpose, that is not called as a production. Only when the teacher receives the salary for his class, then we can consider as a production activities. So in this way, we can quantify or we can analyze that where the production concepts involves in physical and mental activity, where it has to satisfy the individual wants through exchanging of the goods and services from economical value. So through these, we can come to the factors of production, where we have seen like there are the factors of the production itself has been divided into 4 types, that land, labor, capital and organization. Along with that, we are having another one called as technology. So technology is also considered as one of the important factor in case of production. So here we'll see that what are the factors of production in case of production. So in the production analysis, the first factor what we can see like physical capital, that is the money required in order to start the production. So when I want to assemble the raw materials, labor, so I should purchase the raw materials or I should pay to the labor and I should has to take an organization maybe for own or rent where I requires the capital. So capital in the sense money is one of the important component in order to start the work. So production, the first important component is the money or capital. And the second when you comes, it's as a labor. So labor is the human resource. So human resource is required in order to start. Why? Because with the money, machinery, we can't do anything. The people must and should be there in order to access the production activity. So labor is given more important in case of production. And when you comes in case of the another one like raw materials. So when money is there, labor is there, something to be transformed into a product. So for that, the essential things required a product to be produced is raw materials or direct, indirect expenses or materials. So all these materials which are required in the production is considered as one of the factor. And another thing what is an important here is the technology. So nowadays, rather than the organization or other features, technology plays in a very important role. So based upon that technology, we are able to manufacture the products in a more improved manner, quick and other. So when I want to have these all 4 factors of production, first I must and should have the knowledge of these factors. When I want to start a production or a factory, then first I should have a knowledge. That is from where I can get the capital. So what are the different sources of the capital? From where I am able to get the capital required to start an organization. At the same way, the knowledge of labor. So where we can get a cheapest labor for the production. How many people required, where the cheapest and what we has to pay. So each and everything relating to the labor force and efficiencies of the labor is also required to be understand when we go for a production analysis. Along with raw material. So what type of raw material required? It's a direct material, indirect material, and how to assess the material. What type of vendors are there who provides us the material. So the information regarding to these raw materials or the ground things has to be understood. And along with that, technology. So what are the latest technological methods, machineries which provides us in a different dimensions of the goods or more improved variety of the goods. Maybe within a least cost, we are able to go for a maximum or a good production activity. So in this manner, we must and should know the knowledge relating to the each and every component of the production. So along with the knowledge, another important accessories was the managerial skills. So we want to access or to go for managerial skills, means I'm able to, the human beings or the human resource has to be there who has to manage, connect the each and every factors of the production. So the connection process will be done in the production function. So through this production function, we assemble the raw materials. We'll make the raw materials to be work in progress. So work in progress, which was taken place, the raw material conversion process. Conversion process, converting. So this conversion will be taken with the help of labor, machineries, technological advances. These raw materials was converted into output or production. So, with the help of the four important components of the production, by having the ingredients like knowledge and also the managerial skills, so we are able to convert these raw materials into output, which we'll call it as a production. The next. So, along with that, we have to see, while conversion this process, we should identify that what is the production function. So, the production function of an enterprise is an association between inputs utilized and outputs manufactured by an enterprise. So, we have seen what are the important components of the production, and at the same way what is required to convert the inputs into the outputs. So, while going this, the production function of an is required. So, the production conversion process, we'll call it as a function. So, it is what means utilizing these inputs. So, what are there in the input category will be utilized and the output to be manufactured by an enterprise. So, for these we requires what quantities of the inputs are required, which gives us at most output to be manufactured. So, based upon the quantity of the input, the output V is to be identified. So, the production function will analyze at what quantity, at 100 grams, what type of output will be good. If I go for 200 grams of a raw material, so what type of output we are getting? Means the utilization of the inputs will be gives the most quantity of manufacturing the amount or the output what we are gathering. And at the same way, this production function is educated for providing technology. Means while going for this production function, technological advances, technological know-how, means latest machinery, latest developments, and what are the regulatory measures there in case of these latest machineries or the development should be identified. So, it is required because the degree of the output what we manufacture by using various combination of the inputs. Means technology whatever we are having will gives us the with the least cost of input within a more amount of output. Means the raw materials or internal cost will be very less and the outer cost will be very more. So, for this purpose, we should identify the technical know-how. If technology enhances, the utmost level of output achievable for different input combinations will go up. Means, we having a good amount of the technology, then we are able to use utmost level of output which is achievable in case of input combinations. Yes, so when we have seen these production function relating to the technological know-how. So it is very much important. So the technology or advances in the technology will tells us that what type of right inputs to be utilized in order to get an output. So here, after this combination of the technologies, the inputs of an enterprise will utilized in the production procedures, which are called as the factors of production. As we know, there are four factors like land, labor, capital, and also the technology. So when I want to see the production function or the production analysis, let us contemplate a firm that manufacturing an output by using two factors of production. So where we can identify that we want to give an example of a production function. So we see that a firm which was utilizing or taking two factors, one we'll call it as capital as an important factor of production, and another one is labor as an important factor of production. Means, for example, we'll see that how a production function could be adjudicated when we take a two components in the factors of production. So when the production function explains us the utmost quantities. So what are the quantities? That is, Q is a quantity of raw materials or the things which are utilizing in the manufacturing process by using the different combination of these two factors, means labor and capital are the two factors. So what amount of the production we can produce by changing the components, maybe capital to be changed and labor to be changed, then what type of production function we used to achieve can be identified by these following example. So we take the labor as a L and capital as a K as a two factors of production. So with these factors, we write the production function like Q of F of K on L comma K. So where L is the labor, K is the capital, and F is the production function, and Q is the what are the quantity of the output we are manufacturing. Means with the labor capital we illustrated a production function saying what quantity we want at the function. F is the function of what amount of the labor you are utilizing and what amount of the capital we are utilizing, with what based upon that we are getting the output. Next, so which we can show in a mathematical expression relating to the relationship of Q, that is what quantity is required for the function of capital and labor. So we'll identify that Q is in a dependent upon the capital and labor. So here one is dependent and is another independent. So the quantity of output what we are getting outside will be quantified or dependent upon the amount of the capital and amount of the labor we are utilizing. So with this production function, or by taking these production function as an example, we have the at most significant uses. Why? Because the maximum the top management or managers, whatever they want to take the decisions relating to the organization depends upon the what amount of the goods and services we are producing. So based upon that, first we has to, with the help of the production function, we are able to identify that what type of maximum output we are getting. Means amount of output what we are getting will be understood. Means maybe I want 10,000 goods of output or the products outside. So for 10,000 units of goods, how much capital is required and how much labor is required will be identified in the production function. And at the same way, it will help the producer to determine whether the employing variable input cost or profitable. Means these production function will help an individual employee to identify that what are the inputs we are providing are variable, to which we can vary it based upon its cost. What is the cost involved in that and what are the profits we are receiving. For example, if some type of raw materials or the inputs are costly, then we'll achieve or we'll go for alternative raw materials which we are able to get in a cheapest manner, such that the cost will be decreases and profits for the organization will be increases. Means these production function will give an analysis relating to the costs of the different inputs and how to decrease that cost and gives a more profitability to the organization. And at the same way, this production function is also helpful for every organization to take in the long run decisions. So when we want to decide in the long run, then what amount of the production by analyzing the external demand. So if demand is more in the external market for our goods, maybe due to some marketing conditions, then how much goods I should produce. So in that, which factor I am getting at a cheapest manner. Such with that, how much of the profits does the organization can get by enhancing the external demand. Means this production function will much more helpful for us in order to take decisions in the long run or planning of a production activity in the next production period or the next year could be possible with the help of this production function. And here the next we'll see what are the different types of production functions. So with the help of a good production function only, we can have an analysis relating to the product supply of the goods to the market, and with the help of production function, we are able to take decisions in the long run. So we'll see there are the two types of production functions. One production function will come as short run total production function and the next one long run production function. So by analyzing this short run and long run, we can say like maximum the production function will be utilizing the time. So based upon the time utility, we are categorizing the production functions as a short run and also the long run. So these two production functions depends upon number of variable factors. Means what are the variable factors or the important factors considered in the short run and how many types of variable factors are considered in the long run. So based upon the time and also the factors, that is consideration of the variable factors is also considered in order to differentiate the short run and long run production function. So here we have to see that there are two more factors associated with the production in case when more than two variables of production of a product. In case if two variables or more than two variables, or even if there are only one variable, we can keep one variable changing while other variables are fixed. Means out of four factors of production, here some are fixed and some are variable. So when we want to change the production function, we can change, or maybe one factor we can change or all the factors we can change. So that's a thing what they are telling is dependent and independent variables. So the dependent variables, what is the output? So on what it was dependent? Based upon the factors, that is land, labor, capital, organization and technology. So with these factors, we can keep one is fixed and all could be changed. Or all are variable, or we can change two factors. Maybe what we have seen in the production function like capital and labor, both could be changed and some to be fixed. So we get a production short run or the long run based upon the changing of the variable factors. So on other hand, we can keep all variables changeable. Means all could be changed from time to time. So depend upon the nature of the variables, we are able to change, which gives by changing of these variables, the organization could achieve the least cost combination of the inputs in order to produce the maximum output. Means based upon the variables changing, organization will receive least cost. Means at a lesser cost, where we can get a more amount of output. The cost will be less and the goods what we are getting is more amount or maximum output we can produce, which leads this least cost combination, which leads to the profitability of the organization. Means in the least cost combination, why organization wants to see is cost will decreases very less and we are able to get more goods where gives a utmost profit to the organization. So we comes to saying that these two categories of what is the short run production function and what is the long run production function. So first we'll see what is the short run production function. The short run production function considers the changes in the level of output. When only one variable is changing, all other variables are kept constant. Means the short run period where I have been identified that time as also important factor. Why? Because when we are considering the variable factors, when it want to change, the time limit is required. So for short run maximum will take 6 months to 1 year. 6 months to 1 year of time. So in case of this time, the factors of production, maybe some factors like land, which is a fixed one, that is difficult to change within a 2 months or the 3 months. Maybe the factory, organization, what we are established, it is difficult to move from one place to another within a 6 months of period or 1 year. So that's why in the short run, all factors of production are not at all possible to change. So only some factors could be changeable. So in the short run, we'll take 1 or 2 factors which could be changeable and all other factors we want to keep constant. So the law which tells us changing of one variable and keeping all other factors or the variable constant is called as law of variable proportion. It is an important law in case of economics which gives us short-term production function. In case of this short-term function, where the capital is a variable factor while labor is a fixed factor. In case of law of variable proportion, one factor is variable and another is fixed. Where labor is fixed and capital will consider as it is in a variable factor. So here we go for these short-run production function which gets a function or outcome which varies depends upon the changing in the capital. Means here the capital will go on changing and based upon the change of the capital, the labor will be fixed. So what type of changes will be taken place in the output, we can examine clearly by understanding this law of variable proportion. So consequently, when amount of capital was increased, production will go up as labor is constant. Means when we are increasing the capital, the production, more amount of money was invested, more amount of the raw material was given and the labor is given good incentives, automatically the production rate will be increases. Consequently, at certain level, after that where the labor was resist to work, then automatically production level will comes down when the capital is decreased. So here we can identify the changes in the capital, at what proportion the capital will production will increase, at what proportion we can get resist or the constancy of the production will take place, and after some period of time also, though we increase also, the production will decrease. So which we can say with a small example says that if a firm uses 20 units of capital and 6 units of labor, then the ratio is 6:1. So if the capital increased to 2 units, then the labor to capital ratio is 6:2. Means labor of 6% or 6% was constant. here first I have been given you the 1% of capital. So in the next one, I want to increase this capital, that is to 2% of capital. But labor here ratio is 6 is the constant. So the labor to the capital ratio or the short-term production function will decrease when capital was increased. So we used to identify that by increasing this one, 3 is to 2, where we can get by 6 and 2 when divided with a 2, we'll get 3 is to 1. Means though the capital was increased, but the production function will decrease. So this is a small example which we can enumerate the law of variable proportion. And in the next session, we can give clearly what is the law of variable proportion in case of short run. Now we'll see about the long run production function. So in case of long run production function, where we has to identify here the time, as we have a more period, that is 5 or more than 5 years. More than 5 years of time, we'll consider as a long period of time. So in case of long run, we have a sufficient time to adjust each and every factor of production. So if time is more, then I can adjust all factors of the production. So that's why in the long run, the variable factors or variable things are changed proportionately. Means in the short run, due to the lack of time, we are changing only one factor. But in the long run, we have a lot of time. So here, all the variable factors are fixed except one, like short run production function. So in long run, all variables, means short run only one is fixed, one is variable and all are fixed. But when you comes in the long run, all are variable, all factors, that is 4 or 5 factors of the production. Land could be varied, maybe we can change one area to the another area, factory could be changed, labor we can increase or decrease, raw material, capital. So whatever changes we want to do, we can do all types of changes. That's the main thing, that all are variable in the long run. So the law which enumerated the changeable of all factors of production called as law of return to scale. So the changes in the output in case of long run production function is more complex to derive than short run production function. Why? Because in the short run we have only changing one. But when you consider here in the long run, all are changeable. Then it is very complex to identify that what changes are occurring in each and every factor of production. One changes, when labor changes, what changes comes in the raw materials. When raw material changes, what type of machinery is required. If machinery production increases, organization to be changed. Means one is attached to the another. So it's a complex activity where it have an effect in case of incremental or decremental effect could be seen. Means at one case, by increasing all factors, we can see the total production will increases at an increasing rate. But at some level, we can say that the stop increases or the constant levels we can occur, and at some levels maybe we increased all factors of the production also, the production will decrease. Means a complex attitude or the complex developments or complex things will be identified in case of long run production. Means the variables will not respond to our changing proportions. So for this, the same example here we can see that in the short run we have taken capital is variable and labor is fixed. But in the long run, when all factors are variable, we can take both capital and labor or both are variable factors in the long run production. When the capital increases in 2 units, the labor also will increase in the 2 units. Ultimately, the outcome or the production what we are providing will also increase at the same ratio. So, there is a uniformity or the change when one with more than 2 variable changes, and may not be the same change we can identify in the production. Means all variables are changing. The production will not respond to the same rate of change in the output in the long run production function. So here we can differentiate the short run and the long run. As it is a short run, the time period is limited and only one is variable and all other was fixed. But when you comes in case of long run, all factors are changeable. We have more time of to be analyze the factors, and all variables could be changed and no factor could be fixed. So we in the short run we go for law of variable proportion, and in the long run we'll go for law of returns to scale. So based upon this, we can enumerate the differences between the long run production function and the short run production function. So while taking this long run and the short run production, there are some more important concepts to be identified, like what is total production, what is marginal production, and average production. So first we'll see what is the total production. So total production means the inputs. What's in case of total period of time? It refers that the final amount what a product was produced by the firm. Means within a time period of production, maybe 1 year of production. So what amount of the goods and services produced by a firm, we'll call it as a total production. It is the actual quantity of the goods of a firm expressed in units, means 1000 units, 2000 units or 3000 units, what we produced within a 1 year period or within a fixed production period, what amount of the raw material used and what quantity we produced could be called as a total production. So these total products produced by a firm shows the productivity, means itself will shows what increased in the production. By determining the productivity of an organization could be determined the strengths of the production or production function. Means within a period of time, what is the productivity? So what amount of the output we are produced by taking what are the inputs, strengths of internal, maybe amount of labor taken, amount of capital we taken, or amount of the type of technology we used. So based upon the strengths of internal variable item, we can see the productivity was increased or decreased. So that is the quantifying or enumerating the total production of the goods in a particular period. We'll call it as a total production. And the next concept is like marginal product. So the increase in output received means the total production or the production of the goods and services has been got by additional of a variable input known as marginal product. Means marginal production is additional production. Additional in the sense what you added. Actually, I have bought in a 1 lakh rupees of money. So with that 1 lakh, I have added another 20,000. So what you added additionally, 20,000 extra capital was used in the production. So what increased in the production? Means how many units you increased by addition of another 20,000 to the capital will be given in the marginal production. That means additional production by taking the additional capital or additional unit of or factors of production. We'll call it as a marginal production. So marginal production we can identify like change in the output by change in the input. Means what amount of the goods and services are changed by changing the internal factors of the production. We can call it as a marginal product. Here this marginal product we can identify that the total production is a summation value of the marginal product. That is total production is equal to sigma or summation of marginal production. And the next one is average production. So it is calculated average in the sense it's an amount to be calculated that what amount of output for unit factor of input. Means what amount of output we get by utilizing what amount of inputs. In other words, we can say Average production is average of the total production per unit of input, where we can get or where we can obtain these average production by dividing total production by units of variable factor. When what we have produced, the total production goods, is divided by the number of the factors what we have, that is variable factors what we have used in the production activity, we can get the average production. So in order to determine the short run or long run production functions, we has to identify these three types of products, that is total production, marginal product, and also average production. So by these analysis, we can say that the importance or the enumerated of these three products to the short run and long run production. So with this, we can say a conclusion that the production or the production function relating to the short run or the long run are important tools for the management in order to protect any sort of enterprise. With these means, we should identify the strengths of internal variable items. Why? Because in the production, the labor, materials, factors of production, raw materials, labors, capital, or scales. So we should identify which are getting cheaper and which are costly. So in the production, by analyzing these internal variables, at what units of these variables are utilized or inputs are used to get what amount of output could be analyzed with the help of this production function. And it gives or it identifies the strengths of the production in a set of variables. So this production function is one of the important thing where it gives us the utilities of the functions, means what are types of utilities like form utility, time utility, price utility. So what are the utilities are there, how we can utilize them effectively in the organization could be identified. And at the same way, every enterprises can evaluate their efficiency by using the production function. So efficiencies of the organization could be identified how effectively they formulated the production function. So they can monitor whether the production is to be optimum efficiency level while the variable production to be changed. Means by changing the variable factors in the production, which is getting at a cheaper level, we utilize that variable factor more and we want to enhance the optimum production, which is very much essential for every organization. Why? Because the low cost in the production will give more output, that is least cost combination, where the cost should be lesser and output should be more, which fulfills the major objective of the organization, that is profit motive. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.